Thanks so much for visiting Tina Butty on YouTube. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello, and welcome to the Tina Butty podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
Today's episode, we're going to be talking about that British institution that dates back to probably Elizabethan times.
Oh, really?
Yep. Allotments. Allotments, everybody. And if you don't know what an allotment is, Erica will explain.
I would venture to guess that most Americans listening to this podcast don't know what an allotment is.
What would you know, when I said the word allotment to you for the first time, what did it conjure up in your mind?
Okay, first of all, really quickly, let us know on social media somewhere that you've started this podcast and let us know whether or not you know what an allotment is before we talk about it. I'm just curious.
We're just going to waffle for a bit, let you get your thoughts together.
No, when you first said allotment, I don't know what I thought it was.
I think you might have saw them. You might have saw them or seen them somewhere, and you asked me what's all that about. What's all that about?
I don't know.
Maybe not on a show. No, I think it was.
If you had said just, he finally got his allotment.
Yeah. Oh, he got his allotment. What would you think?
I would probably think. I mean, I can't say for sure what I thought the first time. I don't know if you just said it, in a way like that. I think you just told me what it was, or maybe we saw it on a television show or something. But if someone just said, "Oh, he just got his allotment,"
it might have been Doctor Who, actually.
I think that I probably would have thought it had something to do with money, like your allotment for the week,
allotting of money, allotment of
yeah.
I think it might have been Doctor Who. You first saw them. Maybe I'm not sure though. I'm not entirely sure.
No, I think you might have seen them in the UK.
I
want to say it was like One Foot in the Grave or something.
Yeah, that's what it was.
One Foot in the Grave is a British television show for anybody who doesn't know. Yeah.
So, what in the UK? Because I mean, allotments can mean different things throughout the world. But in the UK, if you say my allotment, or I've got an allotment, it's a small parcel or a small plot of land which is rented to individuals, usually for the purpose of growing food crops like vegetables, usually.
Yeah.
But some people can have gardens in it and, and everything. There's no set standard size, but the most common plot is like 10 rods, which is an ancient measurement equivalent to like 302 square yards or 253 square meters.
And basically this just exists because a lot of people in Britain don't have that much, like, yard space. Right?
Yeah, there's no, usually people lived in, like, row houses, and they had the street in front of them and very small backyard, or maybe none at all.
Right.
Maybe it was just a back lane.
You said row houses.
Yeah, row houses for the Americans listening.
Oh, you
terraced houses. No, I've allotted. I've adjusted my my language since I've been living here to accommodate the natives. It's like a small parcel of land. You can grow like potatoes and veg and everything on there. And it can also have like a little tiny shed for like the tools and stuff.
Oh, really?
So
if you guys
there might be a greenhouse on the plot where you can grow like tomatoes and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So I think if you guys have been listening to us for a while now, then you will have heard our episode where we were talking about the differences between British and American houses.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about the yard size and all of that kind of stuff. Because in Britain, like we just mentioned, many houses, even the ones that are like what we in America would consider duplexes, oftentimes they're not going to have that big of a backyard, are they?
No.
And a lot of the times the garage is in the backyard. it takes up part of the backyard, doesn't it? It's in the back. It's not attached to the side of the house like it is in America.
No, it's not. It's usually never attached to the side of the house. It's usually in the back. Because ours was in the back. We had one in the lane, but we never put a car in it. We just stored our crap in it, Yeah. It was just...
Used it like what we would use a shed for,
yeah. And I mean, when we did have like the one I was born in, I guess you could say, is like my first house that I lived on, we had a shed. There was no garage. The car just came in the back drive. There was like a back drive we had.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was like a little like patio and then the shed. Mm-hmm. That was all the land we kind of had before the house.
Yeah. Because in your backyard, in the house that you lived in Britain before you moved here, it was all like paved over, wasn't it?
Yeah, people like to pave over because usually it's just like they just want a patio,
Yeah. They don't want to have to tend to grass,
you can bury the bodies under it then, But, it's just paved over and it's usually better for like, because usually people like to hang out their washing, and if the washing falls off the peg, it won't fall onto dirty ground, muddy ground, whatever stuff.
So because for that reason, they give you allotments. Well, they don't give them to you though, do they?
They don't give them to you, no. You can... I'm not really sure because
do you buy them?
I think you can purchase them, but I think it's at like a inflated cost, and I don't think they let like private individuals just have them for themselves.
Oh, really?
The land itself is often owned by local government, parish or town councils, or self-managed and owned by the allotment holders through an association. So, like the homeowners association?
Yeah.
They've created like an allotment association where you can go and, okay, this is your allotment.
So you just probably pay dues to the association.
You pay dues for that thing. And it's pretty cheap. I think it's in the region of like... some pay as little as £8 per annum, and others pay £80.
Jeez. I wonder if that's based on the size.
Maybe based on the size, or maybe based on how, where it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, where are these usually located? Because you might have a house
some allotments
in the middle of
are owned
town.
by the church as well.
Oh, yeah.
By the Church of England, because the Church of England had a load of land.
So maybe just being a member of the church.
Maybe,
just
yeah.
Church. It's just like...
I think
perk of going to church.
I think I remember, like, I don't know if it was like a TV show or something like that. A vicar said, "Oh yes, my when I inherited this parish, I got a house and an allotment."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I never use the allotment, because I always go to Tesco or whatever and buy my groceries there,
Yeah.
But so he gave it to someone else. But yeah, the rental costs vary tremendously across the country.
That's crazy.
Most tend to be in the region of £20 to £40 per year, often with discounts for the unwaged and retired and stuff,
And this information is coming
from allotments.
Oh. Okay.
Allotments.com.
Allotments.com.
Allotments.com, yeah. No, I mean I've got it all copied into this notepad, so we didn't have the thing. But
you can just Google allotments in the UK.
Allotments in the UK. This is the first site that comes up. I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so you might have a house like in the middle of town.
You might have a house in the middle of town.
And where then would allotments usually be located, or can they just be anywhere around the town?
Well, they can be...
Like, I don't remember seeing when we were in Wales and just walking, or, we would do a lot of walking. I don't remember seeing any, like... Are they usually on the outskirts of town?
Kind of on the outskirts, but usually... when during the First World War... Germany's blockade and everything caused food shortages, which increased demand for allotments. That's when they, because the Victorians had them for like, that it was a good way to keep the poor off the drink. Just give them to do work on an allotment or something.
Yeah.
The poor off the drink and provide wholesome food. It's something you've grown yourself and everything. They kind of fell out of favour. Then the First World War was like, oh, actually, we need you to get back out on the allotment and grow some veg because we've got nothing coming in.
We can't import stuff right now.
We can't import stuff right now.
Yeah.
And one source of land that was suitable for allotments, but not large enough for like general agricultural purposes, was land owned by railway companies.
Okay.
So that's why you see a lot of like allotments, and I think you actually might have pointed that out when we were coming in on a train or something. Oh, there's loads of like little vegetable patches or something down there.
Oh, like around London?
Around London,
like on the outside?
Yeah, and kind of yeah, like if you come into a town, you'll usually see by the railway tracks, you'll see like a fenced off area.
Grow your vegetables by the railway.
Because that's where they own them. That's why you will often see allotments by railway lines today. Yeah, and I've noticed them too. Like vegetable. And I think you've said, oh, they're growing vegetable. Oh, that looks like whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, that's allotments. Usually you'll see them by there.
And they're usually like they're like fenced off, aren't they, around the outside?
Well, yeah, they're fenced off because, it's kind of private land at the end of the day. You can't just have anyone coming in there. And also there's like, we do have like rabbits and foxes and stuff like that, and badgers and stuff that will come out and eat the vegetables.
Yeah.
We still have little critters.
I just had an image of where I've seen allotments before in British programming. I think it was Wallace and Gromit, wasn't it? Where they were growing. They were having a contest to grow the biggest.
Yes.
What was it? Marrow. So
the biggest marrow, yeah.
And so some of the scenes were like people on their allotments growing.
People on their allotments growing because they lived in like a town, yeah. I mean, it's not really an allotment, really, but I was thinking of the Peter Rabbit film.
Oh yeah,
and he was like
that's more like a kind of like almost like a farm, though.
Yeah, it was a cottage with land, so you had enough land there to grow stuff.
Yeah.
But if they give you like a little agricultural space and stuff in towns, and they were growing the biggest marrows and stuff. Yeah, that's where it all kind of started. Just like, got me marrow coming up now. Yeah, I'm gonna be prize winner. Gonna be top prize winner today.
A marrow to Americans listening, for Americans
gourd,
listening, it's sort of like a watermelon, isn't it?
It's sort of like, but it's a gourd, isn't it? I think you call it a gourd over here.
I don't remember. We definitely do not call it a marrow, though. That sounds wrong.
Marrow.
Yes, like you associate.
It's a marrow.
No, I did not realize that these have existed for so long. I definitely thought that it was something that came about during the World Wars.
That's when they kind of gained popularity.
Because you guys had that slogan,
Dig for victory.
Dig for victory,
oh, yeah.
That's what it was.
Because, in the Second World War, when that came about, allotments again increased. Because after the Great War, they call it the First World War, everybody just stopped using them, just when, just again, they were, no one really was into them. It was kind of like a cult thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone was doing it in the Second World War because it was really bad. It was probably worse, the blockades and everything.
Well, yeah, you guys rationing, were actually getting bombed and stuff.
The rationing and stuff.
Second World War.
So yeah, the pressure was greater than that of the First World War, and even public parks were given over to like allotments. They put out like a public park, and you could dig it up and plant veg.
Oh yeah.
Usually potatoes. I think it was potatoes. That was what was like being like, oh, we got to get as many potatoes going as possible. Yeah. And it's funny, in Outlander, she told what's her name to do that.
Oh yeah.
Go and do potatoes.
Yeah. Start growing, but Jamie's sister.
Jamie's sister start growing potatoes. That was like in the 1700s, but that was like the famine thing. Got potatoes and potatoes.
I think that the encouragement to grow things during the World Wars, I think that was a thing over here as well. I seem to think, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I seem to think they gave like tax breaks or something if you were growing.
Yeah, they gave. They did. Yeah, they helped you out. The government were like, oh, you were doing your duty for king and country.
Yeah.
allotments were very popular.
So during the World Wars, when people were growing their vegetables and stuff in Britain on their allotments, were they growing it for themselves, or did could they sell that stuff too?
I mean, it depends, I think. I think they were growing it for themselves mostly.
Yeah.
But if you had some surplus, it was encouraged you gave it over to someone. You know,
just give it away. You wouldn't have sold it.
If you sold it, you were a spiv. You know, basically, yeah. I think that's what it was. If you sold it, it was on the black market.
You have to explain what a spiv is now.
A spiv,
we don't use that term
spiv
in
is
America.
is or was someone in the war who acquired stuff that you couldn't get on ration. Steak, you know, food and stuff like that. Lovely bit of steak, stockings, cigarettes, you know, and they sold them. Mm. And they were kind of like contraband, you know. They sold them for like a marked up.
Yeah.
And, you know, they usually had, like, that little moustache.
Sold things, like, on the black market.
And, you know, it was like, you know, like over here, he's like, here, she. Psst, psst. Yeah, they were kind of like that. It was like, and it was usually the Cockney Y boy in Britain.
They'd open their jacket.
They'd open their jacket and have a load, and it'd be like here, do you 2 for a $5, you know, whatever, you know.
Things you couldn't get a hold of.
Things you couldn't get a hold of, you know, they'd gone and stole, or they got someone to steal off the ship or whatever, you know, that was being strictly controlled.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure about it, but I think it was mostly for yourself. Dig your own stuff and you can eat your own food. Don't have to rely on anyone else.
Right.
On imports, so we can save the shipping needed for war materials or whatever, you know. And, of course, it was easy because it was food rationing, you know. It was like, oh yeah, we can have some potatoes.
Yeah.
You know, and with our little tiny bit of fish.
Yeah, that's true. You know, you don't really you hear so many stories about rationing in Britain, but you don't really hear it from the perspective of these people who were growing their own stuff.
Because I think country life, right, you know, like in the country, that's why they sent all the kids from the towns out into the country. Mm-hmm. It's not because, it's not just because, a bomb might fall on them.
Yeah.
It's because there's no food there's no food here, you know?
Yeah.
People are eating, like, sheep's hearts and stuff like that, you know, to survive, you know, sheep's heart on toast or whatever, you know, and they're only getting, like, tiny bits of meat on the ration.
Yeah.
In the country, they're kind of eating like big steak pies because they've got a big fat cow out in the yard. They're getting milk every day.
But allotments wouldn't...
Juice and from the orchards, you know. And
allotments wouldn't have necessarily existed in the country, though, would they? Because wouldn't they have had their own space to have their own garden?
There would have been a farm nearby, and that, you know, you had first dibs on everything. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the towns, it was a smaller production, you know.
So in the country, I mean, this is getting off topic. We're talking about rationing now, but in the country, rationing wasn't so much of a thing. I mean, except for obviously like sugar and stuff like that.
And stuff like that, was still.
They're not growing sugar cane in the countryside of Britain.
No, they're not. It wasn't so much of a thing as far as meat and milk and, you know, stuff that, you know, like, and fruit.
Yeah.
So those things were kind of like alien in like British cities.
Yeah.
At that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember a story of someone said, someone, I got a banana. When I was a kid, I got a banana and I took it to school and everybody just passed it round looking at it.
Oh, yeah.
And this was like 1943 or something, and this was in, I don't know where, maybe in London. We went to school and we just looked at it and put it on the desk and we were just like... And it's just like, that is alien today.
Yeah.
You know, even with this COVID-19 and everything, and people are, it's wartime. It's like, you're never going to see that type of stuff again.
Yeah.
You know, unless something really dramatic happened, you know?
Yeah.
Really drastic happened, you know, It's kind of like, that was just like, they were just like marveling over this banana because they hadn't seen one. Or a coconut. Coconuts.
An orange.
Or an orange. Oranges. Too, you know, like citrus fruit. You know, it was like,
yeah.
What is this?
Stuff that stuff that you can't get to grow in.
Yeah,
in
stuff
Britain.
You can't get to grow in Britain. Yeah, you know, it was just like, you know, stuff that was imported beforehand, you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't before, yeah.
So allotments are mostly found in the cities.
Then. In the cities on the outskirts, yeah. And by the railway lines, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the food rationing kept the demand for them high until food rationing ended, and then they just kind of went into decline, and it became, in the 60s and 70s, the late 50s, 60s and 70s, is kind of like a pastime for your dad or your granddad.
Yeah.
Where's your granddad? Oh, he's off down the allotment with his flask of tea and his cheese butty, you know.
Yeah.
And he'd be there all day, you know, to keep away from her indoors or whatever, you know. Then in the 70s, they kind of got back up again. Because of The Good Life.
Oh,
We've watched
yeah.
that BBC sitcom, The Good Life, with Richard Bryars and Felicity Kendall, because they were all about self-sufficiency, making your own electricity, growing your own veg, making your own clothes, and everybody was like, "Yeah, we should do this," because it was like the last days of the hippie culture before punk rock came in. Punk rock,
punk rockers,
bloody punk rockers. Do you know what it's all about? If you haven't seen Friday Night Dinner, go watch it. It's quite funny. So everybody started going, oh yeah, we got to get an allotment and grow our own veg and live the hippie life, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of went down again during Thatcher years. In the 80s, everybody was all about capitalism. We got to buy everything and everything like this. But then in the 90s... it started coming back up again with the rise of veganism and vegetarianism and, of course, chemical pollution and genetic modification and all that in food that was being... They were like, oh, they're pumping us full of this crap. We need to grow our own so we know it's good, you know?
Right, yeah.
And so they're kind of still steadily on the rise. I think a lot of, vegans and vegetarians in the UK have allotments.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was so the increase in demand is still there, and I think, you know it's they're probably going to start charging over the odds for them again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know how many today are in production. Mm-hmm. But I remember my friend's grandfather had an allotment, and he used to tell me, I'm going down to work on his allotment with him, you know.
Yeah.
And I knew. I think my great uncle, had an allotment, and I think I went there once with him, with my dad. But I mean, I didn't really know anyone who had them. I mean, I knew of them. Obviously, they were kind of like he's down the allotment.
So how is your land in an allotment? How is your allotment separated from the one? Are they separate little boxes, or is there a fence in between? Or
it depends really. It's usually open land, and what happens is there's a walkway of earth or path, between the allotments, and it'll be this is allotment number 5, and that's my allotment, you know.
Right.
You'll have this square marked off or whatever.
Yeah.
In other places which have kind of just sprung up, I guess, there might be a little bit of, because I'm sure I've seen TV shows and stuff dealing with the comic elements of people squabbling over their allotment sizes and stuff. One Foot in the Grave, I think, because he had one. He was trying to keep his mind, trying to keep busy from moaning at everything. Victor Meldrew went and got an allotment and managed to wind someone else up.
In my mind, I'm seeing someone broke into, maybe it was One Foot in the Grave, someone broke into someone's allotment and destroyed all their some kind of vegetable they were growing, but I'm seing they had it locked up with the key and everything. Maybe that might have been maybe that was something to do with Hot Fuzz, maybe. It's kind of it's what they associate with towns, not cities, Yeah. In cities, people are just we'll just eat cheap food from the supermarket or whatever like that. But, it's more out of the way towns in the middle of nowhere. Okay, yeah.
It's because it's
not country.
Not country bumpkins, but, it's
country bumpkins.
that's what they kind of make fun of them for. oh, old Tom Sandoval's got his allotment broken into, you know.
Yeah.
Destroyed all his prize veg, they did, you know.
Tom Sandoval.
Yeah, Tom Sandoval from Vanderpump Rules. He's got an allotment. Bet you didn't know that, God. Jax Taylor.
But yeah, so an allotment is something very British.
Yeah, it's old Tom Sandoval's got his allotment broken into. All his prize marrow been destroyed. Ooh, and, you know, the police will be after them. You know, that'll be the crime of the century. You know,
I had not thought about this, but I don't know if any of you guys listening know of the website Nextdoor or app, if you have the app. And basically it's like a thing that's all about your kind of neighborhood. You know, your area of town, wherever you live. Someone posted on there that, I think it was on Nextdoor anyway. It might have been Facebook. I don't know. Someone posted on there, and she had pictures of her yard with these huge weeds and just everything absolutely overgrown. She like in a 2-story house, and the weeds were like reaching the 2nd story of the house, and like just the yard was completely overgrown. She posts on there, oh, are you going crazy in your apartment? Are you itching to get outside during all this COVID-19 business? Do you just want to get in nature and take out your frustrations? Well, I've got the perfect yard for you, or something.
And it's her yard?
Yeah. She's like advertising to people who live in apartments, her yard, come do my yard work for me.
Come do my yard work for me,
for free, yeah. And I'll just I'll let you do it.
I'll give you the privilege of watching you.
And she had people responding, "Oh, this is perfect. I've been dying to do some gardening. I'm really missing living in this apartment.
That's
I don't
good,
have."
You know.
Yeah, I hadn't.
I mean, people could tell her to bugger off, you know, but you know.
But you know, because I was about to say, in America, most of us are lucky enough, if you live in a house, to have at least a small front yard
and a small
backyard. You know, if you...
White picket fences is what they like to say in Britain. You know, like, oh, the white picket fence, you know, because it's like, you know, it's like your yard, you know.
But it's not entirely true. Like, here in Austin, we have 1 billion apartment complexes.
That's true, yeah.
And there are people who love to garden. So what about those people who live in apartment complexes? I mean, you could theoretically create allotment spaces.
That's true.
Here for people those people who live in apartment buildings.
The thing is, a lot of like the councils in the in the 80s, I think it was, they were selling off the allotments from underneath, like, you know, Tom Sandoval. He's our generic guy who owns the allotment. Not to be confused with the Tom Sandoval who does not own an allotment on Vanderpump Rules.
Oh my God.
He's, you know, they were selling it out from under him.
What?
Yeah, I mean...
To who, though?
To housing developers and...
to just clear him out completely.
Clear him out so we can make some money and build a Tesco or whatever it was, or an apartment complex or... Yeah, and I mean, so a lot of them went that way, but of course, that's why I think the Allotment Association was formed. They were like, okay, yeah, we're going to stop the council from doing this, and we'll buy up a load of allotments and just keep them ours, and you know, the council can't do it.
Yeah.
So that was the only way to stop them, was to, like, you know, become a you know, join a cartel, you know. Do a cartel and buy the thing off the council themselves, because they'd sell it to, I don't know, some multinational corporation who wanted to build a mall on it or something. Right. You know? Because a lot of, you know, the allotments, they're usually in one huge parcel of land, and there's just like, they're just going, you know, let's divide it up into, you know, into how many things.
I always had the vision, because I've never been to an allotment.
Yeah, next time we go to Britain, we'll take you to an allotment.
Go find some allotment for me to go visit. I always had the idea, based on, I guess, what I've seen on television, that they're really small, like little squares of land. I didn't realize you could get them bigger, like big enough to put a greenhouse or a shed or whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, a greenhouse can be kind of tiny too. I mean, a little tiny shed. So. You can. It's usually. I mean, I don't know, we'll have to look them up and everything, because a lot of them fell into disrepair, a lot of them were just abandoned.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone could be paying for an allotment and never using it. And, you know, we're paying the council dues and my granddad died 5 years ago. And, of course, we've never been down the allotment and his allotment's just gone to
just
pot,
overgrown.
You know? Yeah, I mean, whatever. And it's like, I guess sometimes they probably would say, oh, Tom Sandoval's died, you know, we need to get his allotment, you know, or sell it or rent it out or just, you know, I'll have it, you know.
Yeah.
Because I guess you can own more than one.
Yeah.
If you wanted to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so...
Allotments. Yeah, there you go.
If you didn't know, now you do. Yeah, I mean, you tune into these podcasts, you never know what you're going to get.
You're going to get all of us talking about allotments, British obscure stuff that was only popular like 50 or 60 years ago. You know?
But we do really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any kind of topics you want us to consider talking about,
tell us.
Yeah, feel free to let us know on social media. Or you can always email us. We do have an email address. It's tandabutty@gmail.com. And that's Butty, Butty.
T for Tom, as in Tom Sandoval.
TEANDABUTTY@gmail.com, yeah. But yeah, I think that'll do us for today.
Yes.
We hope you
Going
guys,
down the allotment now.
We hope you guys are keeping safe, sane, healthy, and
wealthy and wise.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.